And Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg joins us now. Secretary Buttigieg, thanks so much for being here. It was heartening to hear Governor DeSantis say that Florida is in such good financial standing. I think that he said that I think they have something like a $22 billion budget surplus right now. He called it historic reserves. And so given that, should some of the FEMA and federal funds be redirected away from Florida towards places like Puerto Rico and South Carolina that are being hit so hard right now that aren't as flush with cash?
Well, it doesn't have to be an either or. We're doing everything that we can to support everyone who has been impacted by these storms. Right now, we've got funding headed to Puerto Rico, which is very much still dealing with the impacts of Fiona, but we're also seeing absolutely shocking imagery and heartbreaking stories from people in Florida who have been affected by the storms. The different damage assessments on infrastructure, roads, even airports and parts of the aviation system, everything about infrastructure there is still being assessed. And we have a lot of resources that we can use. Typically, FEMA will be there in the first instance. That's what you're seeing right now. But we have what's called quick release emergency relief dollars on the highway side that we can use in order to get help to those who we know are going to need it in terms of their roads, bridges, other key infrastructure. And just as we do in normal times, there's a partnership where you have state resources, local resources, and absolutely a very important federal role. I'm sure, as the governor said, they'll be seeking federal resources, and we'll make sure that we're doing our part, teaming up with the state. But right now, our focus is mainly just on making sure that the basic transportation systems are as functional as possible and that emergency supplies can get to where they need to be.
I mean, so there are the big infrastructure losses, as you're defining, and then there's the personal losses. I mean, we've just seen video after video of homes completely demolished, I mean, shredded. And so the property analytics firm CoreLogic estimates that Hurricane Ian has caused $47 billion in insured losses, probably the most expensive in the state's history. Will homeowners be able to recoup all of those losses from their insurance companies or the federal government?
Well, again, this is where there are a lot of different sources of help that are going to align at the same time, from what FEMA can do to what people have insurance coverage for. And we've got to look at the uninsured losses that are out there, especially in zones where people may not have had flood insurance and their regular homeowners insurance may not have covered some of the damage that took place. Of course, from a transportation perspective, we're focused on those public transportation assets. But just at a human level, you see the losses that people have experienced. And of course, there's not only the things that insurance can replace, but loss of a home, loss of family keepsakes, treasures, and unfortunately, the mounting count that we see of the loss of life. People have suffered irreplaceable losses, but we're also already seeing the incredible coming together of people working to both respond to the immediate emergency. I just saw a figure that right now there are workers from 33 different states just on the utility side getting people their power back. And we know that there will be both official and governmental and volunteer and nonprofit assistance to help people get through these very, very difficult times. And it's inspiring to see how that's happening, even as everybody is still responding to the heartbreak and the shock of what's taking place. And of course, many others still in the path of this storm who we're urging to listen closely to announcements from local authorities to remain in a safe place if they're in a safe place or whatever they're being advised to do by local authorities, whether that's to shelter in place or to evacuate.
I know I have to let you go soon, but I have a couple of questions about the ripple effect of this. In terms of air flights, I think 1,800 flights have been canceled as of this morning nationwide. I mean, just because of what's happening in Florida and in the Southeast. So how long do you expect those disruptions?
So we don't yet have a date for when the airports can be back up and running. Obviously, a big focus for FAA is to make sure that we can support that. Anytime you have this extreme of a weather event, there will be ripple effects across the national aviation system. Having said that, a lot of the airlines were able to position their assets safely outside of the range of the storm. And so the question there is really, how soon will these airports be operational so that they can get back, get up and running. FAA actually has mobile resources to support air traffic control when a building is inaccessible or a tower has been evacuated. But we're still, again, waiting for the damage assessments so that we know some of the impact to things like instrument landing system equipment and other things that are on the ground. While we're speaking of aviation, just one other thing I want to mention, and this might sound novel, it's not something we were talking about a few years ago when there were disasters, but sometimes in the aftermath of a disaster, people are interested to fly their own drones, get pictures of what's going on. FAA is urging people not to do that right now, because we need to keep the airspace safe for low-flying aircraft and drones that are being used by emergency personnel as part of the rescue and recovery efforts.
Okay, that's a good warning. Good to know. Secretary Pete Buttigieg, thank you very much for the update.
Thank you.
Yep.